All right, here is our second video for the week. This is about adding and subtracting fractions. So one way I like to think of this, let me focus there, is if you think about this, like what's a car plus a motorcycle? Well, who knows, right? Is it a Carter cycle or a mobile? I don't even know, right? But what we can do is think more generally and do a vehicle plus a vehicle. And in that case, we get two vehicles. Okay? Now, when we add fractions, it's sort of the same idea. If you look at this, what's 1/2 plus 1/3? Well, how can I combine those things? That might be a little tricky. I could kind of estimate it, but if I really want to know the answer, I have to do something else. So we need to go like we did up here, go more general. And in this case, we're going to do this. And I'll show you. I'm going to cut this guy up like this. I'm going to cut this one like that. And now look, if I think about 1/2, this way I've got 1, 2, 3 out of 6. And if I think about 1/3 this way, now I've got 1, 2 out of 6. So now I can add 6. They're the same thing. So 3/6 plus 2/6 is 5/6. So that's why when we add and subtract fractions, you have to have a common denominator, or else it just doesn't really make sense. So we're going to practice that a little bit here. So remember, adding and subtracting, we need a common denominator. So I like to do my problems vertically like this. I know they won't come like this on your assignment, but I would suggest rewriting them on a separate sheet of paper. I know that's a pain, but to me it's easier to do them vertically. So if we think about this, 5 and 20, you got to say, what's my common denominator? Well, this one's not so bad because you might notice that you can divide 5 into 20. So why don't we just make them both 20ths? So luckily this guy, that's already a 20th. We can just leave that alone. Now if I want to make this one a 20 on the denominator there, what do I need to do to get that? Well, I need to multiply. So I need to multiply the bottom by 4. Okay, so if you remember, we need to have an equivalent fraction to 3/5. So if we multiply the bottom by 4, I have to multiply the top by 4 also. So 5 times 4 gives me 20, and 3 times 4 gives me 12. Okay, so now look, I've got the same denominator, so now I can add them up. 12/20ths plus 1/20th is 13 out of 20, 13/20ths. And remember, as I said in the last video there, I want all your answers to be reduced. So is this guy reduced as much as possible? And the answer is yes, because there's no number besides 1 that you can divide into 13 and 20. So this is it. You're finished. Okay? So remember, we need a common denominator. All right, let's look at a few more here. Okay, I have 7/15ths and 1/20th. Now something like this, it might be a little tricky to figure out what the common denominator is. So one thing you can always do is skip count your way to figuring it out. So I'm going to take the biggest one here, and that's 20. So I'm going to start with 20. And 15 doesn't divide into 20, so 20 doesn't work. Now I'm going to just go up by 20. So I'm going to skip count by 20. So 20, 40. So now let's check 40. Does 15 divide evenly into 40? And the answer is no, so I have to keep going. Let's do 20 more. I get 60. Okay, does 15 divide into 60? And the answer is yes. So 15 divides into 64 times. So this is what my common denominator is going to be. So you can always make a list by skip counting with the bigger denominator, and then you just check to see when you can divide the top denominator into one of those numbers, and then you get your common denominator. Okay, so I need to use 60. So I need 60 down here. Okay, so again, to get from 15 to 60, I need to multiply by 4. So remember, top and bottom, we multiply both by the same number. So then the top becomes 7 times 4, or 28 out of 60. And then on the bottom here, you'll notice I've got a 20. So 20 times 3 is 60. So then I need to do 1 times 3 on the top to get 3 out of 60. Okay, denominators are the same. We can now add them up, and we get 28 plus 3, or 31 out of 60. Remember, when you add fractions or subtract fractions, the denominator in your answer is the same as the denominator in the problem. So we don't add 60 plus 60 to get 120. We leave it out of 60. So there's our answer. And again, that is reduced as much as possible because The only number that divides into both of those is 1. Okay, so here's the next one. I got 14 and 3 for my denominators, and I'm going to subtract. So let's just skip count by 14. So here's 14. 3 does not go into 14. I have to keep going. 14 plus 14, well, let's see, that's 28. 3 almost goes into 28. It goes into 27, but 28 won't work. Okay, let's do another 14. 28 plus 14 is 42. Okay, and 3 actually will divide into 42. Okay, this is 14 times 3, which is another way to figure it out. You can always multiply the two denominators together to get your common denominator, and a lot of times that'll work just fine. I mean, it'll work just fine all the time, but a lot of the times you'll have to reduce your answer at the end. So if you can find the smallest number that both denominators to divide into, that's the best way to go. And here it turns out that is 42. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 14. So I need to times 14 by 3. And then I need to do 9 times 3. Okay, 9 times 3 is 27. And 14 times 3 is 42. So there is that equivalent fraction for 9/14. And then I need to do 1/3. So to get 42 down here, I need to times by 14. So I'm going to multiply by 14 and by 14. Okay, 3 times 14 is 42. 1 times 14 is 14. Okay, remember I'm subtracting here, right? So 27 take away 14 is 13 out of 42. And then let's check, is that reduced as much as possible? And it turns out it is, because the only number that divides into both 13 and 42 is 1. So there is our answer. Okay, let's look at one more here with subtracting. And 12 and 18. Well, those are awfully big numbers. We could multiply them together to find a common denominator, but it's going to result in a lot of reducing at the end, and I don't want to do that. So again, let's just do what we've been doing. We'll take our 18, and we'll skip count by 18. So 12 does not divide into 18. So 18 plus 18, well, that might take a little work there. So let's see if we do that. 18 plus 18 is 36. Well, does 12 divide into 36? And yes, it does, luckily, and that is great. That's 12 times 3. So to get my 36 down here, put some equals in here. I should have been doing that all along. But to get my 36, I need to times by 3 and by 3. Okay, 11 times 3 is 33. Okay, to get 36, that's the second number in the list, so that means I have to times by 2. So let's multiply each of these by 2. Okay, so 18 times 2 is 36. 5 times 2 is 10, so 5/18 is the same as 10/36. So now look at this, same denominator, we can subtract 33, take away 10 is 23 out of 36. Okay? I'm going to do one more actually, so let me turn the page over in just a second, but I hope that's okay so far. Let's look at this next one. So I've got 5/12 minus 1/6. Okay, so I think I don't need to do a list here because most of you are going to notice that 6 goes into 12. And so 12 will be my common denominator. This guy I don't have to change at all. I'm just going to leave him like that. And 1/6, to get a 12 on the bottom, I need to multiply by 2. Okay, so I get 1 times 2 on top here. That's 2/12. So now when I subtract, 5 minus 2 is 3/12. Okay, I wanted to do this one just to show you, because not all the time will you get answers that are fully reduced. Because here, hopefully you'll notice that 3 divides into both 3 and the 12 in this problem. So I actually need to reduce it. So let me do that here. I'm going to divide by 3 to reduce everything, because we want our answers in simplest or reduced form. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that 1/4 is the best answer for this problem because it is in simplest or reduced form. Okay, I know adding and subtracting fractions can be a little tricky. So again, as I say, please email me and contact me if you have any questions at all whatsoever. Thank you.